suspension seat, which seems crazy, but it's just for your back and the idea that you're on there 24/7. You got to sit down and kind of crook your neck back to look up. So Costco, Sam's Club, you guys, this is why they designed this list, to be able to jump on and off, grab a pallet, grab something off, and not have to beat your body up to that. So using this every day is gonna, it's gonna save your body. You'll feel better at the end of the day. But it's the same theory as having, and it's adjusted by the side here. When you guys get these lifts, I can really dive into these things. But the idea is bringing it back up and then making sure that it's set in. If you let it go, it's pretty limited, it'll just smack down.
Yeah,
but at least in that sense, the heavier you are, your shift, you can set it up and have it set. But again, you're able to jump through all these bumps and not, your body's not going to be the control system, just to kind of go backwards, the same brains that are in that pallet jack and the same brains that are in this, or if you buy a sit-down forklift or in these. So technician-wise, to be able to diagnose is really, really easy. And I can do most of that just from this display here. So going through and setting, if you said the way the Caterpillar lifts at the speed that it does with a full pallet is what we want safety-wise, I can literally adjust this lift to side shift, lift lower, do every single thing exactly how that lift does it. This is all hydraulically controlled through that one current system. So kind of a good thing feature-wise. It also has 3 settings in here, so the access system allows you to have P1, P2, P3, which says you're a brand new operator, and I don't want you running through a wall, or I want you traveling in the aisles at a certain speed for training purposes, and I can set that up specifically for that operator, allowing you to switch through. There's a system, and not to dive in too deep on this, but InfoLink is something we had discussed a little bit. It's going to be a new XM radio, think about it that way, that's on forklifts. You either choose to have it or not. But impact detection, so if you hit something, it'll shut itself off. It's going to be another brain system that's on this. So all of your operator training, if you're only certified to work in the sit-down and you haven't ever used this forklift, obviously you've got to get it out of the way. Someone's just going to jump on it and try to move it, and that's when accidents happen. So we'll be able to track that too, to where the guy can't use it and things like that. So there's a lot, and that's going to be, again, companies your size are already implementing that, and it's built into the lift, but you can get it outside for anyone to sit down and everything now. It's kind of an added feature. So the ergonomics, again, with the arm controls, this type of stuff is all an add-on, but it would be built exactly to what your sit-down forklift is. So the blue lights all come factory stock, the non-marking tires, everything that you have was on that quote to be set up. The only big difference there is the battery technology that's in this currently is far superior to even 2 years ago. So the Nexus battery pack that you would have inside of this is the same that's in that pallet jack, is maintenance free. And the long and short of it is the amp hours that are in your battery is relative to the size of your gas tank. So it really doesn't matter how physically big it is, it's how many amp hours it has and how much you can pack fuel-wise back into that gas tank. So the cool part is now that technology has gotten so superior that we can put that battery in here and you never have to worry about propane or switching the stuff out again. It's going to save a ton of money, which doesn't really matter to you.
Do we have a charger for it?
Yeah, so it'll come with an industrial hardwire charger, and the idea is you're able to charge it when you stop for break or whenever. It doesn't matter. So with the old technology, what's in here is lead acid batteries, and that has give it an 8-hour charge and an 8-hour cool down is what the manufacturers recommend. So if you spot charge it, just like your cell phone, eventually you start seeing that it dies quicker. It has a life to it. So it's just as many times as you can plug it in is actually hurting that. The new technology, it doesn't. And then you don't have to worry about watering the battery and getting acid and stuff on your hands, or essentially overboiling and having that stuff on top of it. So just the labor cost alone of having to do that is the difference in the price of the batteries not having it. So
the batteries will last over 2 shifts. Should be great.
Oh yeah. As soon as they're off, they're sitting, one of the lifts is sitting on the side, you just plug it right in.
Okay. And
it's going to be able to, again, pack a ton of energy in that battery fast. So it'll do multiple shifts without an issue at all.
Okay.
Everything on this control handle, so for any competitor, Caterpillar, which is also Jungheinrich, also Mitsubishi, they all are with that same company. They mirror as much as they can off of Crown, because Crown sells like 80% of these to the market. So when it comes down to it, they're by far the biggest, but it's really specifically built, it sounds stupid, again, the ergonomics to how it's done is being able to have everything in one handset. So all of your horn, your side shift, Your tilt, you're literally just holding down the button, and it's doing all
This
this.
button back here?
Yeah, and it's doing.
to hold that button down
So
to make it work.
if you're not holding that down, then it's going to do different functions, right? So it's able to do like a forward and reverse, like or an up and down tilt, and then here it's maybe being able to do.
So it won't slide back and forth if.
It will do that, but it won't tilt. Yeah, it won't have the other functions. So essentially, when you're going through, this one might actually have. So the way they set this up is actually you're able to do it without that. So you're able to tilt back and forth without it. Some companies want to be able to say that you have to press the trigger and then be able to do one or the other, so it doesn't activate the same.
So you don't have to press the
It
trigger at all.
It's all customizable. So this one specifically will be able to do that for office control. And then as you use this more and more often, you'll realize, and I was mentioning this to Tony, it's more of a wrist movement than it is anything else. Once you get positioned and your back is kind of leaned into the forklift to give yourself stability, you're literally just able to push forward, push backwards, forward and reverse, and then up or down the lift power. So it's where it'll seem a little bit more touchy than the lifts you have now. That goes away in literally a day's worth of using it. And then again, if it still is too fast, that's just hydraulic pressure, and that again can be adjusted. So we can make that slower, so it's less jerky on the pallet and lifting it fast. Everything else that goes on the lift, I mean, again, lights and that kind of thing, you're going to have all of that built on this, but it's going to kind of not have to worry about really messing with it.
When you're lifting the pallets up and down, you don't have to give it any kind of gas or anything, right? Just like
No, it's pretty
that's
fast.
The biggest difference here is
We'll let you get on it.
essentially, it's going to go, like we were just saying with the pallet jacks, think about a Tesla. This thing is built to run. I mean, this could go 20 plus miles an hour without an issue, but we would never let it do that with a pallet, right? The idea is it's set to an average of like 5 miles an hour. It's an
Okay.
I went
overlift,
ahead
sit down
and
forklift.
I
But you're able to
scanned a copy and
navigate
gave it
that
to Tara,
motion.
and I'm also
I mean,
going to let you have one too.
small as you possibly want. So it's just
Wayne
it's
already had it
very,
put up and
very
everything.
specific compared to the sit downs where you're kind of lifting and lowering and it's more of a fast movement. So the same thing with forward and reverse. The drive motors being AC immediately click on. So it's just going slow at first. And all the operators that end up going through this, I'll help them with that. But once they realize that if they're getting on the lift and they're going forward and it's jumping, it's them. Right? So the more they get used to that hand motion and how they're using it, the slower and more methodical they can be on the action. So all of our trainers are trained on this equipment. I'm a trainer myself, so the idea is the same with your OSHA certification. It's 3 years to the day. So instead of me having to go through it every 3 years, it just became a trainer. But we're able to come in here and really spend as much time as you guys need on running it. I just tell you again, it's not going to take a ton of time. It's just a matter of really spending the time to do it rather than just throwing them at the wolves and make them have to learn fast. But you'll see too with the tiller on everything. If you move back a little bit, if you're going forward and you're going slow enough, you're able to feel the way that back end sits. It's no different than the back end of the sit down forklift, the way it sways. So it's going to bring that back in, but it's just a smaller head length that's going to be able to give you more space. So it's not a ton difference, but it is even 6 inches is actually a lot bigger. When you're standing on the lift and you're swinging the back end, you're able to see where it's coming in at, so your body's fully protected. And that's got something cool about Crown is your foot left and right have to be on the pedals. If you come off the pedal, it's going to throw it. It's going to say left pedal, right? So the cool thing now with that InfoLink module is, as a manager, right? If someone comes to you and says, "Hey, this forklift isn't running," unfortunately, the pallet jacks are just the simplest of all. But these now, with the brains that they have, they've even got a video tutorial every time that you were to hit, and it's operator error. So instead of you having to say, "Hey man, listen, your foot is not in the proper motion," it literally will go through a video and say, "Hey, reposition your left foot like this," and then you go back to doing your work. So it's kind of cool, and it's all following the aerospace industry where they're already doing this. Before the airplane lands, they can tell what part is going bad. So when it lands, the part's there, they fix it, and they put it back on, right? And if it sits for too long, they can charge back the airlines. That's where this is going. So eventually, we're going to be able to tell you before you even have an issue that the drive motor is starting to fail based on temperatures and things like that, to where we come out here and replace it before it happens. So it's pretty cool technology. But the only way Crown can do that is they own every piece of this to like 98%. So they make the plastics, they make the motors, they make every part, so they don't have to rely on another manufacturer to do that. And if your foot somehow, so you're able to reposition your feet in a way you feel most comfortable, and during the day, be able to reshift. But again, it'll show you if you don't do that. The outside bar that's here is to make sure that your foot's not swinging outside of the lift. Raymond, Toyota, every other manufacturer doesn't have this. It's kind of crazy, but that's the majority of the injuries on this lift would be ankle injuries based on somebody swinging out, hitting or a pallet or something else in the aisle. And that's the same thing with this here. So the idea of backing into racking systems, some manufacturers don't have this bar here, but if you don't have that, it can crush the operator. So it's something simple. If you were to switch from an existing Raymond account and you brought in a Crown and they'd say, oh, that's visibility, it's hard to see. It seems crazy, but like they're just used to not having certain things. The Crown sees, well, this is our family's business. It's not publicly traded. If someone gets injured, it's on us. So we want to make sure everything is safe for customers. So, and again, there's not.
When you turn it on, sometimes we've been having problems getting it going. Is there any special anything?
Yeah. So it goes through a power turn-on system. So essentially, when it's off, you're just turning it on and then holding it, and you're gonna let it cycle through.
Okay.
And then it's on.
Okay.
So you'll hear it click, and then everything's activated and good to go. It doesn't, like, again, maybe 15 seconds or something down the line in order to get it started. But once that RC 5500 comes on, you'll hear it click, and it's good to go. And again, if I wanted to go through here and see hour meter readings, this lift here even has 8,000 hours on it, so it doesn't obviously look like it. But this is out of our short-term rental fleet. There's different hour meters for your running of the lift. There's hour meters for the drive motors themselves. We can dive into service on this lift way better than we can the propane forklifts because they just don't have the brains these electric lifts have. So in time, again, this will eliminate somewhere in the 70% range of the failed components that are on propane forklifts. So downtime for your operators having to sit in this corner because it happen in the system. So it's pretty cool in that instance, but all of your event codes are in here, your serviceability. You won't have to worry about any of that. And if anything comes up to where you need me to speed up the lift or slow it down, that instance, I cannot personally. It's not like we have to call a technician for those charges. I can do it myself. And I can give that information. So it's an access code in order to be able to get in there. We suggest calling me to do it because if it gets around to other operators, they can speed it up. And they can But yeah, other than that, it's pretty simple. Again, the only thing is just getting used to standing up in the control handle itself, and the way it turns versus sitting down and using the steering wheel. I'd say that anyone that you see even if you stop in Costco, Sam's Club, next time you're there, ask the operators that run the lifts. It's pretty neat that they'd say they'd never get back here sitting down again just based on having their back covered and that type of stuff. And you're a young guy, so you don't have to. Yeah, it's just, the constant jumping on and off and doing the shrink wrapping or anything else is kind of eliminated. But that's pretty much the long and short of it. You don't have any additional features that this lift would have that you already have on the sit down that would need to be added. Yeah, so there's just an access switch, and when you get your forklifts, it'll like the blue light will be on there. It'll be constantly on in reverse. The strobe light will be constantly on.
The only thing I would have to turn on is the
headlights.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is this?
So that's an emergency stop for the battery.
Okay, for the battery.
Yeah. So it's like a safe fall for if the lift doesn't turn off.
if someone's
Emergency happens. Yeah.
Okay.
Know this. So your braking system, if you want to back up this way,
Yeah.
this is kind of the coolest part about electric forklifts. Again, in the sense of not having
Danny, come to the front, please. Danny,
brake
come to the front.
systems to fail the same as they would on the IC trucks. So if you go forward, so if you go backwards or forwards, the way you're stopping is called plugging. So you're going to back up and you're literally going to put it in the opposite direction and you're going to feel that lift slow down. The same thing with the pallet jacks. In the instance of that's how its motors turn backwards. It doesn't hurt the lift at all. But you'll feel that when you're running around and you're able to go at speed and then slow. It's not fast, but it'll just literally stop. Now, if you wanted it to stop fast, it will do exactly that. And literally how fast you turn in the opposite direction is when it will stop. So I think there's a lot more control brake-wise on this. Even the sit-down forklift. So we have 7 different lines of forklifts, and almost every one of them has a different brake system. And mainly the thing is, while stopping distance is X, Y, or Z, they still come down to any of the. It's because of that control. if you go backwards or forwards, let off the gas, it will put on an emergency brake, and it will stop fast. So something that I definitely make sure all the operators know before they pick up a full pallet that's not shrink wrapped is that they can drop a load in the sense of coming in here and then trying to jump off the lid too fast and something else and having to ship up. So, but that even is something that you hear, that as soon as you run it and feel that braking system, you'll see it's just second nature. When you need to stop, you just flip it the other direction. So, and that's pretty much it. I mean, it's not a ton of. This system as well is kind of thoughtless. The idea is, and this is crazy, but we probably get more phone calls from a customer plugging in the forklift to the front side rather than the battery, and then the forklift dies. Usually Target facilities or something like that where they're like, hey man, it's just not charging. So the industrial charger on the forklift, there's a threshold, and when you get the equipment, we'll go over it, but there's a threshold that's like a sweet spot of where you want to plug it in. With your battery system, you don't have to worry about that. Again, you're going to plug it in whenever you want. With these batteries, we suggest it goes down to about 30%, then it plugs in for that 8 hours. So if it comes into shifts, it gets a little bit messy with the lead acid batteries because it's based on the shift and when the hours run to. So sometimes it will only be 4 hours between the shift that you can plug it in, and then you run the truck and then it goes down. So it might not ever get to a full 100% until a break day. So let's say it's Friday, you plug it in, Saturday they come back, and you got a full night to really charge it. But essentially you're just pulling this off and you're plugging it in to the charger side here, which is so once that goes through,
Plug it straight into the battery, not the actual.
yeah, not the truck. And then you'll see like this setting here is it doesn't necessarily matter. I mean, as long as you're going on and you're putting that on, it will automatically stop.
So is that like the hours or
So it's
got the power of the charge?
it's just the timeline that it's going to run through.
Okay.
So I
it
wouldn't
is
necessarily.
like an hour thing.
Yeah, as long as you have it on there for now. I mean, it was at like 40% charge. Then it'll pack some power back in there. But these are just short-term batteries. So yours would be, or short-term chargers. Yours would be wall-mounted. It would have an interface. I would explain the interface to you. So it'll have the same type of possible fault codes or telling you, charge is complete, that type of thing. When you plug it, it'll even tell you how much it's put power back into the battery. So if it's 80% charge, it'll be relatively front, which is pretty simple. And then once it's done, you literally pull it off. If you don't ever have to worry about it, even if it's over the weekend, you leave it in, let it go. This thing will cut off and not have any issues at all when it comes back.
Cool. It's good to know. Usually don't work Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah. So if you leave on a Friday and you plug it into the industrial charger, it's going to sense and do everything it needs to do. And when it's cut off, it's cut off and it's done. So when you come back in on Monday, it's going to be a fully charged forklift and done. It'll sense your body and run up, but there's essentially, as long as your weight is distributed properly, it'll run.
Oh, so as long as
But you
it's
have
even.
to be on this pedal right here, right?
On the left side, yeah.
So the left side is the pedal that
Left side
rolls.
of the pedal, yeah. Yep. And again, even if your foot's big enough, you're able to really put your foot out. It won't go. It will not. It will cut that off no matter what.
So what does that do when you step on that piece?
All this is just a safety override to make sure your foot's not outside. So as it goes down, it's got a switch in there that just won't let it run. If your foot's anything on top of that, it won't run. But it'll tell you up here on the display again that, hey, your foot's outside the guide. It'll ask you to reset your foot.
Okay.